Hello, ICISF World Congress 16. We are so happy to be here. This is the Ashes to Art program, and we're going to talk about mindful decontamination.
I am Kathy Sullivan.
And my name is Craig Evans. The objectives of the day are to understand the basic physiological effects of trauma. We want you to learn about first responder personalities as seen through the art. The proof is in the art. We want you to learn grounding techniques and regulating techniques that you can use every single day to deal with stress and to bring yourself home to homeostasis. That's the key. So let's get right into it. My name is Craig Evans. I have a master's degree in education from George Mason University. I'm also a retired firefighter, paramedic from the City of Fairfax Fire Department. How about you, Kathy?
I'm Kathy Sullivan. I have a master's in art therapy. I'm a registered expressive arts consultant and educator. I have also been trained in a variety of bilateral techniques and trauma-informed practices, which we offer to the first responders in our program called Ashes2Art. Ashes2Art is a non-profit organization that was established to provide wellness services for first responders. So not only do we do creative arts, but we also offer amygdala regulating techniques. We operate under the Northern Virginia Emergency Medical Services Council, which is run by his truly, Craig Evans.
Thanks, Kathy. Let's talk about the reality of the job. If 9/11 taught us anything, it's that first responders are more than just the people on the other end of a 911 phone call. They're the frontline troops. If anything happens on U.S. soil, they're going to be the first ones there. And it's a dangerous job. It is full of perpetual compounding stress, sleep deprivation, and we haven't given them the effective processing skills to deal with all these stressors. So when do they recover? Right now, they don't. When the military comes home from a deployment, they process what occurred to them. They're at home. They're in a safe environment. Emergency responders do not process at home. We don't give them the tools. They don't have the tools. Today, we're going to give you those tools. Most importantly, we need buy-in from the top down. If you're a public safety leader and you're listening to us today, God bless you, because you're not one of the problems. But you do know that there are problems within your organization at the leadership level. And we need you to buy in. We need you to create tools for your responders so that they can go home every day and be safe. And emergency responders have two families. They have one at work and they have one at home. And compartmentalizing these areas of their lives creates barriers to true balance and homeostasis.
Thanks, Craig. Okay, so now let's talk about mindful decontamination.
Ooh, familiar with that.
Well, talk to me.
Well, I'm familiar with the decontamination part. If you see on the left here, that could be me. This is what happens. So the second an emergency responder, firefighter, police officer gets something bad on the outside of them, we attack them. We attack them with cleansing water. We clean it off immediately, and we make sure that nothing touches the outside.
Is that mandatory?
Absolutely, it's mandatory. We're not even allowed to take a patient to the hospital unless we do this sort of procedure with them to make sure we don't bring the contaminants somewhere else. But for some reason, we don't neutralize any of the things we see, any of the things that go into our mind.
Smell, senses, smell, sight, hear.
All these are triggers, and all these need to be cleansed just as quickly.
So we've come up with the mindful decontamination, which we've decided is neutralization or removal of problematic content from an individual. Because if you're going to have to physically decontaminate, why in the world wouldn't you have to mindfully decontaminate? The stressors of the job are beyond any other profession. So why has that been lost?
We're great on physical fitness. We need to work on our mental fitness.
For sure.
Anyone who's been on an ambulance has had a day like this. This is Dan's son who painted this picture. dansonphotos.com if you want to check out more. He covers all sorts of emergency response, and he's really a guy who's done his work. Isn't that right, Kathy?
He's super. So Dan is a paramedic, I think firefighter in Canada. He has walked the walk. He has gone through PTSD, and his work is a perfect example of using the creative arts to process your junk, period. And you can see how powerful his work is. I would say one thing, if you're having a visceral reaction to this, then we might need to look at that.
And I'm a firm believer that every emergency responder has gone through PTSD. We're all in some different phase of it. And so just realize that. You're
Well,
not immune to this.
interesting. Dan did not know that he was suffering from PTSD, but he was in the middle of a lecture and they were talking about the symptoms. And he stopped and was like, I think I've got PTSD. And that started his journey, and he is amazing.
Absolutely. So, Kathy, how does this trauma get stuck? Tell us about Emily.
Okay, so we've got 4 requirements for traumatic encoding. It's the event, the meaning, the landscape, and inescapability, or perceived inescapability. So with the event, it must contain a threat. The meaning, it needs to generate some sort of emotional response. The landscape is your environment, has it been resilient, or have you been vulnerable, because that will add in how you can handle this. And the inescapability, like I said, perceived or real. So Emily is very important because the delta wave techniques deal with the inescapability part, and that is, if that is delinked, then, and not going back to the long-term memory, then that helps with getting through all this stuff.
So this is how it gets encoded, and we
Yes.
want to decode it
Decode. Yes.
and get it out.
Yes.
Out with the badness.
Yep.
So let's review the physiological effects of a traumatic event. You know this, you live this every day. First, adrenaline spikes very quickly. And then there's a gamma wave elevation, which is our brain waves. They become highly elevated and puts us on edge. And this trauma lives in the right side of the brain and throughout the entire body, which causes a greater peripheral nervous system response. Now let's talk about the nervous system. The autonomic nervous system is made up of the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. If you're a paramedic, I'm going to be boring you, and if you're not, then you might have an oh wow moment, and that's what we're looking for. So the sympathetic nervous system isn't very sympathetic. It actually causes the whole fight or flight syndrome. This is the catecholamine response. This is adrenaline rushing and you trying to survive. This is what happens when a deer runs into the headlights of your car. You have a big reaction, your heart rate goes up, your breathing spikes, and the deer does the exact same thing and runs like crazy. And the parasympathetic nervous system is the exact opposite. It's a sense of calming. And it's mainly, you can access this through the vagus nerve. So the vagus nerve comes down. It's one of the cranial nerves, and it comes down and it accesses your heart. You can access it through your breathing, and it can create the opposite effect. Diaphragmatic breathing reduces sympathetic nervous system arousal by stimulating its opponent, its antagonist, the parasympathetic nervous system.
Well, and we've got fight or flight, but we also have freeze. That is a component. Fight, flight, or freeze. This is all your body kind of taking care of yourself in the middle of this arousal. So it's not a bad thing. We're just telling you what's going on, and how it affects responders is when you're not having your sleep because you're so deprived, and you don't have you don't have the restorative sleep, and then you've got to prepare for your next shift, which brings the trauma. Keep going. You are actively in battle. So to be able to get back to a homeostasis with you guys is really, really difficult. So the reason that diaphragmatic breathing is so important is your diaphragm hits your vagus nerve in just a perfect place that it can go throughout your body. So we'll show you some techniques later, but when you hear people say, oh, take a deep breath, or when you're talking about yoga or whatever it may be, what's going on there? Your vagus nerve is being affected, which is then going to dispersing throughout your body and your organs. And so that's really important. If you're going to breathe, make it deep, make it hit your diaphragm and hit yourself into the parasympathetic. Stressors, anxiety, stress, and trauma. So with the diaphragmatic breathing, anxiety is improved, and there's emotional re-regulation, and panic disorders have been seen to also be calmed. The other thing is you can't physically have a panic attack if you are deep breathing.
And according to Lazare et al. In 2005, it actually thickens and strengthens the prefrontal cortex. Now, this is where we have our emotions. This is where we make our decisions. So this is, to me, I remember this because take a deep breath. And
yeah, but why?
To help me think straight, right?
Right. Left brain functions, right brain functions. Left brain is more logical, more scientific. It's where verbalization occurs. Numbers. The other thing is the other side, the right brain, is where we are dealing with senses and emotions and imagination, and the expressive arts really play a big role with right brain functions. Again, if we're going to be experiencing our senses and stuff in our emotions, and they're in our right brain, why are we just talking about it, which is a left brain activity? We want whole brain.
Now let's talk about brain waves. Gamma waves are our hypervigilant, fast brain waves. Beta waves are our normal, walking around, everyday type of brain wave. Kathy, can you tell us about the slower brain waves?
Obviously, these are the slower brain waves going all the way down to delta, which is very similar to sleep, if not sleep. Theta is still, it's what you would experience in the creative arts. It's what you would experience with mind, meditation, with yoga. And so that state of I'm present, but I'm kind of lost in the activity that I'm doing. The reason the creative arts is so incredible is it not only gets you to theta and operates in theta, but you can process events and process trauma. And that is a different story. You can't do that with yoga and meditation, but that doesn't mean don't do yoga and meditation. I say, yeah, do it. But Delta will be introducing a technique that is about as easy as can be, and it gets you into a Delta state like that.
And it's all about Amy. So tell me about Amy. What is it about?
Amy is what we call our amygdala. And our amygdala is, we referred earlier to ART, the amygdala regulating techniques. The amygdala is our friend. It's the part in your brain that is in charge of it's the alarm system. It's the smoke. It's the one that when smoke goes, it shoots the body and gets going. And that's what responders absolutely depend on. So we need that amygdala to be fighting, right? We need it to be up there and fired up. But how do we calm the amygdala down? So the thalamus is where your four senses, all of them except for smell. Smell goes directly to the amygdala. So the four senses go to the thalamus and then goes to the amygdala. That is where the brain is going to be saying, uh-oh, there's a problem, we have to go, we have to do something, or it says, you're okay, we can calm down a little. But so these are the three components that are necessary for the neurobiology of trauma, is the prefrontal cortex, thalamus, and the amygdala. But Amy, we love Amy, but we want Amy to be rested at some point. Okay, let's talk about art, the other art. These are amygdala regulating techniques, and we have put these acronyms to help understand. It kind of tells a story. So I'm going to do a little blip about each of them, and hopefully this will make sense. So first we have art, the creative arts, right? And we know that gets you, puts you into a delta state, which is really important. We have PEAT, which is primordial energy activation transcendence. DP4 and DP2 is full of BS, meaning bilateral stimulation. I know it's BLS, but we're doing BS to go ahead and just have fun with it. Then we've also got delta. We know that the delta wave technique slows the brain down to the delta wave. And this is another technique we need to regulate the amygdala. And then we've got FIDO, meaning good dog. What are service dogs about? They are therapy dogs. Why are they soothing? And if we look at it now, knowing that delta wave can be stimulated by the palms of your hand, petting an animal is then putting you into a delta state. So we've got art. We need art, PEAT, delta, and FIDO to go ahead and go to help the next category, which is Amy, which is your amygdala. We know that Amy needs to be soothed and needs to go back into a calmer state. There are certain things called AMPA receptors that come out like warriors, and we need those that are on the amygdala neurons, and we need those AMPA receptors to go back in and calm down. So Amy needs to be calmed, but thank you anyways for your service AMPA receptors. We are very grateful. Mindy is mind and body. Mind and body are one for all. So we know that what affects your mind affects your body. And then we have Emily, which we talked about before. She's allowed to now plant a new garden. She is free to do that. Remember, Emily was event, meaning, landscape, and inescapability. So then the next stage is going home, sweet home. What does that mean? That is homeostasis. This is where we want everyone, on all first responders, to be able to get to homeostasis. We do need to find out where that base is for responders who are very dysregulated regarding stress. Where is that state of homeostasis? But we've just given you techniques. So this whole thing, looking at this, is Art, Pete, Delta, and Fido are going to help Amy, Mindy, Emily get back to home, sweet home. So we think this is a fun, easy little chart to go ahead and figure out how to make our lives better and improve first responders' lives and decrease their cumulative stress.
So that's why we use the creative arts, and it's all the arts. It's writing, it's forging something, it's creating
Music.
anything.
Music, dance, anything that is creative. So I'm talking cooking, woodworking, gardening, creating. What did we do when we were little? When we were young, we had two things that we're trying to address here. One thing is we had an innate need to create sandcastles, mud pies, snowmen. That was what we were born with, and this desire and need to do. The other thing was a self-soothing. We've missed that. We need to learn how to self-soothe, and we will show you that with the amygdala regulating techniques. But first, we're showing you creative arts. Let's get you back in touch with what we all were doing. So the other things that it's been proven to show are hormonal and autonomic systems re-regulation. It decreases psychological trauma symptoms and depression, reduces cortisol levels, and it engages many, as we know, aspects of brain function and neural subsystems. Plus, we've also got the theta brain. We know that that's where the theta wave, that's where you're in the moment and immersed in it. And when people are saying mindful, like you're in the moment, you're immersed in that. So it's a very mindful, the act of creation is very mindful. One thing that we kind of say is if you're going to we want all different arts. Like we offer a forging class, like how amazing. But incorporate it into your life to get to theta. So when you're cooking a meal, do it intentionally. Use your senses. Remember, we want to engage that right side of our brain. So we want to, listen to the chopping of the food. Put music on. Put your favorite music on. And listen to the chopping. Listen to the music. Do a daily task, but make it into something intentional. Smell the food. Taste the food. Engage the senses to engage that right brain activity. Okay, so the other thing about the creative arts is the World Health Organization just recently, I think it was 2 years ago, it's 21, yeah.
Well, they sound credible.
I know. Reviewed over 3,000 studies involving the roles of the arts in health and well-being. They concluded that there is a major role for the arts in prevention of ill health, promotion of health, management, and treatment of illness across the lifespan. I'm also going to say if you need any more data, it is out there about what the creative arts do to your body and longevity of life. We have a study that just came out in the Journal of Clinical Social Work called Mitigation Strategies, Ashes2Art Mitigation Strategies for long and short-term distress and first responders during COVID-19. So if you need, that gives you a good resource for what the research that's been done out there for the arts. Okay, so this is the expressive therapies continuum. I actually trained under Dr. Sandra Graves, who's a co-creator of this concept. It's the different sides of the brain and which are being activated with the creative arts.
More left brain, right brain stuff.
More left brain, right brain stuff. So go figure. The creative arts, they are a whole brain activity. It was brought out, I think, right brain a while ago, years ago, and it is not. That is not the case. There is research to show that it is a whole brain activity. So you can see we've got cognitive and symbolic are on one level with the left brain and right brain, and it will switch back and forth. Perceptual, affective, kinesthetic, and sensory. So this is yet again another argument why creation and creative arts are so important for regulating stress and getting you to a calmer state, away from the gamma.
But I'm not an artist, Kathy.
Oh
I am
my
not
God,
an artist.
I've heard it. Aren't we all artists? Let's go back to that. We were all born artists. We didn't care what anyone thought. We thought that if you take a 4 or 5 year old and you ask, and you don't have to ask them to do anything. First of all, if they're creating something, which they immediately do it, it is from within. They don't care about what you think about it. They do it freely and without criticism and without judgment. And so along the way, and it's usually at the age of 12, they said that the sense of creativity kind of gets hampered, because then you're in the school system and you're worried about others and judgment. And we have become this society and culture that's worried about, what does this look good? Does this not look good? And so part of the liberation in learning the creative arts, especially with first responders, is that you get to get back in touch with that. I don't care. I'm going to do this because it feels good. I'm going to do this. And it's all about the process, not the product. Okay, now on to the Ashes2Art framework. Our classes were provided to first responders to allow them to have a safe place to go ahead and express themselves, decrease some cumulative stress, and if trauma came up, we would deal with it. First of all, the setting needed to be rankless. We had a variety of all different ranks, and that is wonderful for that setting. That rank is taken away, unfortunately, for those, but it was a wonderful setting. Everyone's on the same level. We provide a non-judgmental space, as we talked about how important that is. This is not therapy. This is supportive in nature, and this is the way it should be. These are, again, high-functioning individuals who just need to be able to be given the correct tools to decrease their cumulative stress and be able to function. I provided a partial directive for the classes, meaning I would give some information but not a lot, which influenced the responders to have to kind of think outside of the box. So that's one thing that I found to be very, very important with these guys, especially because they're really driven on protocol and step-by-step guides. So this was a really important thing to kind of get them to step outside of the box and get back in touch with their creative selves. Family members were always included in these classes. Peer support was critical, and I will tell you, if it wasn't for the peer support, it was like responders know what they need. So the peer support was driving it. Departments were not driving it. Leadership was not driving it. It was the peers. And so kudos for peer support. Our emphasis was on the process of the creative arts over the product, meaning wanting you to get into that sensory experience. It wasn't about making something beautiful. It was about enjoying yourself. Another important thing is the creative arts allow you to externalize the internal. That's very important. You'll see that in a piece of art soon. We tried to focus on a fine art element as opposed to crafty. So whatever we would do in class, we then in the show would go ahead and put it up on, a burnt piece of something or an auto wreckage piece and turn it into something totally different. Another thing was nonverbal communication was obviously, there was verbalization and fun and talking and all that through class, but the art is nonverbal communication, so we promote that. I always ended the class with a cognitive exercise of some sorts. Another thing here that's important is all disciplines of the emergency services profession were included. I'm talking law enforcement next to dispatchers, next to ER nurses, next to even tow truck drivers, because those guys also pick up some really gnarly stuff. So this was important to have everybody. There was a lot of cohesion in having the different disciplines there. And I would strongly recommend it with law enforcement because it's such a solitary discipline. And I think this would be great, is getting them with other responders when, the stress is the same, the trauma is the same. There are different elements to it, but it's still instilled the same. And then amygdala regulating techniques were provided after class for anyone who was interested. Okay, we're going to talk about Ashes2Art findings through the actual artwork itself. So one thing, we saw personality type of the first responder displayed in their artwork. If you look at this Coke can exercise, I had given little tips, cognitive exercises throughout the sessions for responders to learn how to draw. This project was literally, I'm giving you a piece of paper. It has a Coke can on it and another piece of paper with pencil, and I want you to draw this. There was a little bit of resistance at the beginning, thinking, oh, I can't do this. Once they dove in, if you look at these drawings, they all look almost perfectly to scale. And even at this art show, we had people go ahead and talk about or wonder if it was if it was by the one person on 6 different days, when really it was 6 different pieces by 6 different people, which is really interesting. It really shows that it's a precise population, it's a precise and perfectionistic personality. The next thing was compartmentalization was a huge thing for that was observed, and I have a lot of I think this explains why we've got a problem with responders not being able to reach out. So we've got several pieces that show the compartmentalization. You'll see what I mean by compartmentalization is there's a lot of distance. Everyone stays into their own space and they stay away from each other. Is it a respect thing? I don't think so. I think it's stay in your own lane. And so you will see through these pieces also operating on a cognitive symbolic level. You can see, and what that means is you'll see symbols, you'll see hearts, you'll see hats, you'll see peace signs. So note that they're operating on cognitive and symbolic levels as well. But so the compartmentalization, why is this important? There are 2 bubbles. We've got the firefighter family bubble, and we've got the home bubble. Now these are very clear, concise bubbles. And we see this in the artwork with the, staying in your own bubble. But what protects them and protects them from, the trauma of the job and the junk from the job is this beautiful bubble. And then they leave, the station or wherever they're working, the department, and then they go home, and that's their other bubble. But in between, they don't know how to kind of reach through that bubble to ask for help. And so that's what I'm seeing, because what the art process was doing in these classes was providing a platform that was healthy, that involved everybody, and ultimately it turned into a platform for asking for help, for a testing ground to ask for help. And so that we need to bridge those bubbles somehow to get them to be able to reach out. And the reason I know that this is so important is I saw when COVID hit, those bubbles were breached. And I saw departments and I saw responders fall apart, and that's unacceptable. So I was brought in to go ahead and teach regulating techniques to peer support to bring out to their people, because what was going on? The bubble from work was coming home and interrupting their bubble at home life because of COVID. And that is a problem. So I think this is really something that we need to learn how to deal with, a middle ground for these men and women, and be able to have a safe platform that they can explore that middle ground and learn how to reach out and talk about help and know that it's safe and easy and fun and whatever. So it's bridging the compartmentalization. So another piece of work, this was done in a gingerbread building contest, which we offer during the holidays, which is amazing. We offer cash prizes, and it's a great fun competition that we do, and we have a cash reward. Well, so what we have here is a perfect example of someone externalizing the internal. You can see this amazing gingerbread house was burnt on fire, specifically by design, which is really cool. But this is a perfect example of externalization of the internal. So we'll see here, we see resilience in the creative process. And what does that mean? These pieces were made out of pantyhose, if you can imagine. And so when I gave the partial directive, I want you to have, these are these tools, I want you to do this. I saw them reaching for things and doing different things and creating these amazing pieces from a variety of materials. And so that is resiliency seen in the creative process. So another really important thing that we see here, we have got all these different ages and sex and ranks and different disciplines in one group. And that's hugely important. I talked about it earlier, but that adds for cohesion, and that needs to be implemented more. We need to have more understanding that you're all kind of in this together, and the unspoken rule, what you're dealing with. And we all need to have a sense of self-care in doing this. Okay, so this next drawing, this was called a feeling states drawing. We did it in 4 different pieces, and it was mad, sad, glad, and scared. And the responders put on hazmat kind of outfits that I had brought, and kind of assumed, an artist kind of identity, which they kind of, it was interesting to watch because I think there was a lot of, they broke through some barriers in being able to express themselves. But so this was done, and it was kind of done as a game. Someone would come up and I'd say, "Here, you need to go to number 1," and then I'd show them the card, and it was mad, or go to number 4, and that would be scared. So what you see here are, it said glad and scared, and you'll see a torso on the glad one, a woman's body. This was done by someone who had just had a double mastectomy, so she was very happy to have been done with that. The one next to it is fear, and you can see there's a lot of expression and content in that, which is really remarkable considering this was not a place that I would go to with them. You want another thing I will point out, the glad. Look at how compartmentalized that is, and you will see through these. They're all respecting each other's space to a too much of a degree, and that's what makes it compartmentalization. Are they being respectful, or are they keeping their distance way too much? Or is it also, you stay in your lane with protocol driven profession, because if you don't, you're going to, someone's going to get hurt. So this is just something, this is an example of the compartmentalization. But this is also an example of me asking them, when we all sat back, I asked them to talk about, the how they felt and the doing this and the fear and all that. And that's where I found you are not to push this population ever. They did it, they expressed it, and that was it. And I have to respect that. So what I did instead is I shifted it to the piece on the right, which was, I explained that you guys are not interrupting and invading other spaces. I want this to be connected. So the last piece was the directive that I want everybody to touch someone else's work, and the whole page has to be filled. So you can see that there's a big difference there, and they had fun with it and put their hands in it, and they dove right into that exercise. But this is a perfect example of not why we do not push these people with their emotions. It is unnecessary. We are there for support, and we are there for containment. That needs to be honored. Okay, the regulating techniques. I've only put 3 different small things, which I found were important for responders to know for themselves, but also for their coworkers and also for the public. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 grounding. Most of you must know this if there's anxiety going on, or if there's a panic attack, or even if there's just someone abreacting. Name 5 things you see, 4 things you can feel, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, 1 thing you can taste. Now, isn't it funny that those are your 5 senses, and they are for grounding? Now, why would that be? It would be because you need to access the right side of your brain.
Yeah, you're going to bring us back into the moment.
So you're getting, when you think of body and mindful and here and now and present and grounding, this is what it is. But what are they doing? They're using their 5 senses. So next one is 4, 7, 8 breathing. And quite honestly, you could do 5, 7, 8 if you want, whatever. What it really needs to be, it's regulating, getting you back in touch with your breathing, and so that you can go into a deeper diaphragmatic breathing. So you inhale for 4, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, hold it, 7 for the count of 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Keep doing it until you can get back into that deeper breathing. Remember, it's the shallower breathing that's going to take us to a panic attack, and also is the stress response. So that gets you prepped for some of the techniques we'll talk about next, but that just is a good starter to get you into some belly breathing, some diaphragmatic. Mandala art. This is a super grounding technique, super grounding. So even if you're sitting around the table at the station or a department or whatever it is, do a circle and make a point, and you can create your, Google it if you want to. Google how to make a mandala. But this is a super way to go ahead, and again, it's repetition, 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 repetition. And it is grounding. It is using your kinesthetic, it's sensory. You're doing all that stuff that you need to do to get into that right side of your brain. So, due to the limitation of time, we are going to just provide handouts for PEAT, and which is primordial energy activation and transcendence, and we have used it with responders and had a great response. So this is kind of a go-to for processing. It's a bilateral technique, but it's very non-triggering. If you need more information, please reach out to one of the presenters. Delta wave technique. This is a whole game changer for first responders, and I really want a lot of attention paid to this. Delta wave technique is also called havening. We've chosen to call it Delta wave technique, which is with Dr. Rudin's blessings, because the responders that I've been working with don't like the name havening. So I don't want to go, I want as little resistance as possible. So
it's all about packaging, right? It's all about promotions.
Well, and it's not, they didn't like it, so it's Delta wave technique. So there are two doctors who are brothers out of New York, Stephen and Ron Rudin, and they developed this technique based on neuroscience. It's taking all of EMDR and all these energy psychologies and all that and putting it together. What they have found, and this is going to be a brief description. We are going to be offering training for anyone who's interested in doing responder work and using this technique, because we
virtual training, right?
We can do virtual training, easy. But this is a game changer. So the science has shown that there are different areas. There are 3 different areas on the body that are socially acceptable. So these areas that are the most stimulated or the most sensitive when being, it's a sensory psychology for when it's being stimulated. So there are 3 different ones. The palms of your hands. So stimulating your palms would be, like you're washing your hands. You can do it circularly, you can do it sideways. It's just, we need your palms, and you go back and forth. The other one is shoulders. So you go up to your shoulders, down to your elbows, and up to your shoulders like you're giving yourself a hug. So shoulders down. And the other one is your cheeks, interestingly enough. So you can go like you're washing your face. You can go the whole way and get your palms in there. But this is one of the techniques. So hand washing, hugging, face washing.
What's my brain doing while I'm doing this?
What your brain is doing, and these guys have tracked this, is it is going into delta state. So which is similar to sleep, right? So if we've got you guys going off on the gamma, we need, how do we regulate you and bring you down? If you can't do EMDR, or you're not going to do EMDR, what about something really simple and a no-brainer? I think there's one sleep yoga that you can do that gets you into delta wave, but nothing as simple as this. This is washing your hands. So what they have found is that you can go from, there are 2 different types. There's going to be transpirational delta wave, and that is taking an emotion to an event and processing it over and over. So you close your eyes and you do your havening, we're calling it delta wave technique. So we're doing your delta touch. And so you're thinking, you're going to be chanting, and you do that almost like a meditative chant, and you keep doing it for quite a period of time, until it either shifts and you can process that, or until it dissipates altogether.
What do you mean by shifts?
It can shift into rage to fear, like I'm afraid. So then you switch to fear.
So you just
fear,
say,
and
you just verbalize,
and you do it.
The feeling.
Yes. So it's a very quick technique, but what I envision being used with responders is, wouldn't it be amazing if every shift ended with a decontamination, a mindful decontamination? Let's go through our shift. You could do it together. They could do it together, go through your day. And then focus on a good call. What was a great call we had? And focus in on it. What made you feel good about it? Etc., etc. Get you into a delta technique until it dissipates. And then you always want to end with an affirmational. You can wake up and do this before you start your day. You can do stream of consciousness. You can do just, affirmative stuff. You can do hopeful. You can do, outcome, future. I want this job so badly. What would this job look like? And, whatever it may be, there are lots of different wonderful ways. But so remember, if there's a distraction as well, go to a positive. Switch from that positive, which is I'm going to go to event havening or event delta wave technique. So there is an event delta wave technique, and what they have found is bringing up the event automatically brings it into your working memory. You don't need to do much more than bring it up, and then apply the delta wave technique, and you would go ahead and go forward with 3 different types of distractions. So the distractions can be, you would get that with where a favorite place that the person likes to walk or vacation or whatever it may be. Tell me take 20 steps, sing a song. There are lots of different distraction techniques, but you do at least 3 distractions, and you want it to go from 7 to 10 minutes, because that working memory, the image and the event, will not be able to go back into the work and get back into long-term memory. So it's that distractive technique that we want to stop it from going back into long-term. They've had a ton of success with this. It's an amazing, easy, quick technique that can be used for the treatment of traumatic events, but also in the supportive and long-term care, which is what we are promoting big time. So I think it's a game changer. For more information, we're asking that you reach out, but we're going to be setting something up that will be dealing with responders. So feel free. But that has been our fantastic one. And remember, all of this is so that we can go home.
But there's more to this than just rubbing your hands
Wait,
together.
There's more.
For $19.95. No, there's no. It's not. It's not $19.95.
For free. For free.
You can put together a mindful decon kit.
Yes.
So talk to me about this.
Okay, so we realized, remember, this is having to do with the senses. So we need something to ground people, right? And we know that grounding technique uses all 5 of your senses. So why don't we give something that operates as like a transitional object, again, linking the 2 compartments from one bubble to another. From home, you bring this from home and you bring it to the fire station, and this is your kit to go ahead, and we put sensory stuff in it, but this is just a starter. So what we want to do is go ahead and have it, ultimately, we're planting a seed, bring this, but we want to add have people make it their own, like have pictures of their family. We want music to be used, that's stimulating music. So I will tell you what is in it.
Everyone's kit looks a little different, right? Because
well, these are just starters. So this is all you've got at the beginning. So you've got a cup that reads, "Be here now." So that even if you're drinking from this, someone else is looking at it, maybe maybe they'll be able to ground a little. We've got, remember, our whole program is like by responders for responders. So we've got Teresa Rufo-Swanson, who's amazing, did these essential oils to get you started for, what's the strongest sense in our brain or a body that goes right to the amygdala? Smell. So we've got these lovely essential oils, which are really important. And she also uses them on calls when she knows she's going to a call that she puts them under her nose, which is very interesting. So gum, because stress, it showed that it's a stress reducer. So we figured, what other thing does it do? It helps with taste, the sense of taste. We did these, we offer drawing and writing tools and a little book that says,
just get it out.
Just get it out. I don't care what it looks like. It's not about grammar. It's not about good spelling. Write it.
It's not even about words. That could be your doodle pad, right?
Do a color, whatever it may be. And then we've got this funny little guy who is our bilateral squeeze. So when people are stressed, again, laugh, right? So when people are stressed, they can go ahead and do this. I don't care if you throw it against the wall, but we're trying to plant some seeds. I want people to be like, what's bilateral stimulation? And then they can look into it.
And that could be a tennis ball, right?
It could be a tennis ball.
It could be anything.
It could be anything. So, and we want people to add music to it, because when you're doing this, put music on. It's remember, we're just elaborating on the common sense approach to working with stress and trauma, which is it's instilled in our bodies. We want to activate that right brain, have it be a whole brain. So that's what our mission is.
Yeah, you keep your headphones in there. You could have a song list in there.
You can have like
your happy songs.
A relaxing one. You can get a fired up song.
Yeah.
Lots of different things. So this is just the beginning. Oh, and then the other thing is we've got, I don't have it here, we've got mandalas that have been created by first responders that we will put in the kits so that people can go ahead and take their writing utensils and draw, right? It's repetition is what we need. And that's also a distraction, but it's to keep doing that, which gets you into theta, which we know. And then the other thing is we are going to be putting in guides to do self delta wave technique, because it is what everyone is going to need, I think, in the future.
That's a good place to put a copy of that slide or a guide.
Perfect.
To help you remind you how to do this, right?
Yeah.
So how do I get one of these kits? Like, can I get one of these kits?
Yes, you can reach out to us at ashes2art.org. It's www.ashes2art.org. And we are working on getting those out. They are free.
Is there hope?
Oh, there's hope. There's hope. I really feel like there's a shift coming. I've been doing this for 4 years and the resistance has been phenomenal, but our progress has been slow and steady and methodical, and that's why the state of Virginia has recommended us as a resiliency strengthening program. We've got our studies out. We've got our new techniques. I feel that there's a tremendous amount of hope for the future.
And these are our hopes, right?
These are our hopes. So hope number one would probably be that leadership gets on board with some sort of worldwide initiative for mindful decontamination. And why do I say that? It needs to be part of protocol. I mean, too many issues going on. We need to address them. We've got some simple techniques. It's no brainer. You know, decontamination needs to now be something that's just not for your body.
Yeah, we need to require mindfulness. We need to require mental fitness to go along with all the requirements we already have for physical fitness.
Right. So my fantasy is that it's something like it's protocol. But anyways, that a girl can dream. But you know, the more we get it out there and we practice things and get something nice and cohesive, I think the better off we'll be. Hope. The second hope, mindful decon kits. We're putting those out, like what I just said, and that's going to help with wellness and plant those seeds that we need to get out there. The more we can do it, it's one and it spreads. And our third hope is that experiential and sensory methods will be used in the future with verbalization debriefings to activate the whole brain response. Because wouldn't it be cool if you just had pads of paper and you doodled, or you had mandalas, and you went ahead and you practiced that pattern, and we know you're going into theta with that, so why not? That'd
be great. Like, so part of the process of talking about debriefing a call or trying to figure out how we can do things better is to take a moment to gather ourselves and try to reach a better state to make decisions and process this.
Right.
Like that.
And so that's hope number 3. Hope number 4 would be that amygdala regulating techniques, in particular delta wave technique, will be used routinely at the end of the shift to decrease the cumulative stress that our responders can then return home to homeostasis.
And to their actual home.
To their actual homes. And then the beauty of that is, delta wave technique can also be used with clients. It also can be used with peer support and your fellow coworkers. It can also be used with family members. And the reason I say with clients is I have had a responder had a person in the ambulance who was not doing well, and he said after he did delta wave technique and he was amazed by it, he said, I now realize what I was doing to that client. I took her hand and I started holding her hand and brushing her palm, and I started asking her about her family. Do you have kids? Where are your kids? Do you have any? And he said the EKG started to regulate. And he said, I didn't know what was going on. And here, he had no idea. He was coming in to learn this technique to regulate his own stress. And here he had naturally and innately done this with someone else.
Yeah.
So
Everyone goes home. We want to add a little bit to that. Everyone goes home healthy and well, regulated.
and everyone goes home to homeostasis.
Exactly. So those are our 4 hopes and dreams for the future, and we hope that you help make this a realization.